Wednesday, the 11th of March 2026, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 6:30 p.m. news live on B News 1. These are the headlines. Ahead of the upcoming parliamentary and municipal elections in Cameroon, the National Assembly has urged political parties in Cameroon to be responsible. The call was made by the Dean of Cameroon's National Assembly, Honorable Marli Sapotute, as Parliament opened for the first ordinary session of the legislative year 2026. Also, panic and displacement are spreading across several communities in the Menchum division of Cameroon's northwest region as residents flee their homes following a wave of violence attack allegedly carried out by armed herders near the Cameroon-Nigerian borders. Dozens of families have reportedly abandoned their villages, seeking safety amid growing fear and uncertainty. That was it for the headlines, the developments, and more coming up next. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure having you tonight. I am Jackie Ebele, your news encore. Political parties in Cameroon have been called to responsible ahead of the upcoming parliamentary and legislative election. The call was made by Honorable Marli Sapotute, Dean of Cameroon's National Assembly, as she officially opens the March ordinary session of Parliament yesterday at the Pobia Glass House. Fabrice Kedinga reports.
Political parties in Cameroon have been called to be responsible ahead of the upcoming parliamentary and legislative elections. The call was made by Honorable Marli Sapotute, Dean of Cameroon's National Assembly, as she officially opened the March ordinary session of Parliament on Tuesday, March 10 at the Pobia Glass House.
Calling on all Cameroonians to be peace-abiding, calling on us, any other political party that is stepping in, to be responsible alongside the militants. I greatly appreciate that. And I think that with us as Cameroonians, it's our country. We need to be peace-abiding. We need to think about what is good for us as Cameroonians.
It was the first time she was assuming that role following the death of Honorable Laurentine Kouamfege.
Well, I think she did a great job. She was a bit taken aback because, she's replacing someone who unfortunately passed away. May her soul rest in peace.
As the March session gets underway, expectations are high among Cameroonians who expect reforms in several sectors.
This is the first session of the new legislative year after the presidential election. So the main expectation we have is about the announcements which have been made after the presidential elections and during the launch here and in the address to the youth. So many reforms have been announced. So some of them need legislative modification.
The National Assembly paid tribute to the late Honorable Laurentine Kouamfege, a devoted stateswoman who died on January 22, 2026.
A great parliamentarian, Honorable Fege, with humanity, with respect, with experience. I think we here in National Assembly and in our country, we have lost a respectable woman.
The March session of Parliament opens in the presence of members of government, including Prime Minister, Head of Government, Joseph John Guti. For 30 days, these gentlemen and women will decide the direction the destinies of about 30 million Cameroonians goes towards.
Cameroon is stepping up preparations to host the 14th Ministerial Conference of the World Trade Organization. The acting Minister of Tourism and Leisure, Gabriel Bairobe, yesterday, Tuesday 10th, urged managers of selected tourism establishments to ensure quality hospitality and professionalism ahead of the major international event scheduled from March 26 to 29 at the Yaoundé Conference Center. The preparatory workshop also reviewed accommodation and catering arrangements to guarantee a smooth reception for the expected international delegations. And Mrs. Marie-Angèle Meyonga, mayor of Afanglum, has been re-elected by acclamation as president of the Network of Local Elected Women of Central Africa, REFELA, during the regional caucus held in Yaoundé. Her re-election reflects the confidence of local women leaders in her vision, commitment, and effort to strengthen women's participation in local governance. Mrs. Meyonga is now recognized as a key figure in local female governance and a strong voice for women's empowerment in territorial administration. On to something else, Cameroon's Air Force has taken a major step towards strengthening operational readiness with the first National Military Air Force check at Douala Base 201, led by the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, Benoit Bede Eba, and Benjamin Afanyu reports.
Cameroon's military aviation came under review as the Cameroon Air Force conducted its first national operational inspection at Douala Air Base 201. The exercise, led by Air Force Chief of Staffs Benoit Bede Eba, aimed to evaluate the operational readiness, discipline, and technical capabilities of personnel stationed at the strategic base. The inspection focused on aircraft maintenance, logistical coordination, and the preparedness of troops to respond effectively to national security challenges.
You've been able to carry out the C-check, the minor C-check. This one we are carrying now is for the first time in our country and in our region. And now we are going to join some of the African countries.
This first ever check has principally been carried out by local technicians, keenly supervised by Air Force Chief of Staffs Benoit Bede Eba. Military authorities say the evaluation is part of a broader effort to strengthen professionalism and efficiency of the Cameroon Air Force, which plays a critical role in national defense, surveillance, and humanitarian operations.
What we are intending to do now is to bring all of our fleet maintenance levels at the same level, including the MA-60, also with the CASA that we purchased from Spain.
Officials say such inspections will help ensure that Cameroon's Air Force remain fully prepared to support security operations across the nation and protect national airspace.
Practical training on blood transfusion for staff of Cameroon's National Blood Transfusion Service and 14 blood banks has begun in Garoua as part of efforts to strengthen safe blood management across the country. The initiative falls under the Paddock project, supportedly led by Expertise France. Running until March 20, the training focuses on donor management, laboratory practices, transfusion safety, and hemovigilance, while also reinforcing the organizational and managerial capacities of participants involved in the national blood supply chain. Authorities and regional stakeholders gathered in Yaoundé for a regional workshop aimed at confronting data from the Observatory of Abnormal Practices and strengthen efforts to curb illegal checkpoints, harassment, and other irregular practices along key Central African transport corridors. Report. Abnormal practices continue to persist on Central African roads, making them more expensive compared to other regional transit corridors. Harassment, illegal checkpoints, and unauthorized payments significantly increase transport costs and hinder the fee from movements of goods. To address these challenges and improve security along key transport corridors, particularly Douala, Kribi, Garoua-Boulay, Bangui, and Douala-Jamena, a regional workshop was held in Yaoundé to present and compare data from the Observatory of Abnormal Practices (OPA).
Douala, Kribi, and Bangui, Douala, Kribi, and Jamena, Douala, Kribi, Yaoundé, and Libreville converge on the fact that there are so many unacceptable practices on the corridors. Unacceptable practices which ultimately impact the competitivity of these corridors and, of course, the competitivity of our sub-regional economies, and particularly the economy of Cameroon. This observatory provides an ideal platform for decision makers to master what is understood as unacceptable practices.
The meeting was chaired by Paul Tasson Jikan, Minister Delegate to the Minister of the Economy, Planning and Regional Development. The workshop marks the end of the data collection phase aimed at identifying obstacles to the free movement of goods along these strategic corridors as part of a program supported by the European Union. According to the Cameroonian government, the data gathered by the Observatory of Abnormal Practices on these corridors are already encouraging. Indeed, the Douala-N'Djamena and Douala-Bangui corridors are essential roads for supplying landlocked countries in the region. Combating abnormal practices is therefore not only a transport issue, but also a major challenge for economic development, logistic efficiency, and regional security. The closing of this regional workshop marks not an end, but a new beginning, one that encouraged states to take ownership of a tool they helped build to improve the flow of goods across Central Africa. Fear and uncertainty are gripping several border communities in the Cameroon's northwest region as dozens of families flee their homes following a series of violent attacks and threats allegedly linked to armed and herders operating near the Cameroon-Nigeria border, as Micheline Bilowa says.
Scenes of distress unfolded in Bejinga village in the Menchum Valley subdivision as frightened residents fled their homes, carrying whatever belongings they could salvage in search of safety. Women, children, and elderly men were seen trekking towards safer localities such as Benakuma, abandoning homes, farms, and livelihoods behind. Villagers say the displacement follows repeated armed incursions and death threats allegedly carried out by Fulani herdsmen believed to have crossed from neighboring Nigeria. According to residents, communities such as Ejinge, Esu, and Wum have lived under constant fear for years as tensions between farmers and herders continue to escalate.
We want to solve for this how we security. That's sometimes the physical cow interbush for smoke, chop them cassava, plantain, cocoa, other one.
Local farmers accuse the herders of invading their farmlands and turning cultivated fields into grazing grounds for cattle. In several instances, crops were reportedly destroyed after cattle stray into farms, further deepening the conflict. Villagers say attempts to resist the destruction of their farms often result in threats of physical assaults, forcing many families to abandon their homes entirely.
This side will be there for that side of Beijing. We hear Fulani don't cause problem for another side. As they cause the problem, so they try even for threatening our own life. Say they did not cow we never touch the cow.
We never touch them. Now so they don't put some we boy it for hospital. Now we do run. They say move run. If you will not run, they will kill we.
For many of the displaced families, survival has now become the main concern. Homes and farms have been left unattended, exposing properties to possible looting, while livelihood disappear overnight. Children are among the most vulnerable victims of the crisis, as displacement disrupts their schooling and threatens their well-being. Residents are now calling for urgent intervention from administrative and security authorities to protect these border communities, already weakened by nearly a decade of conflict linked to the separatist crisis in Cameroon's northwest and southwest regions. Until stability returns, many displaced families say they can only hope for one thing: the chance to return home safely.
And beyond our borders, Boko Haram has intensified attacks on military bases in the northeastern Nigeria. Elsewhere, a drone strike has shocked residents of Ghana in the Goma in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Micheline Bilowa for the World News Roundup.
In Nigeria, the jihadist group Boko Haram has intensified its attacks on military bases in the northeast of the country. In recent weeks, several army positions in Borno and Yobe states have reportedly come under coordinated assaults involving heavy weapons and explosives. Security analysts say the group is trying to demonstrate its continued operational capacity despite years of military offensives by the Nigerian army. The renewed attacks are raising concerns about the security situation in the region, where insurgency and displacement have affected millions of civilians for more than a decade. In Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, residents of Goma woke up in shock after a drone strike hit the city around 4 a.m. The explosion, which occurred near residential areas, caused panic among inhabitants already living under the constant threat of conflict. Authorities have launched an investigation to determine the origin of the drone and its intended target. The attack comes amid ongoing tensions in North Kivu province, where clashes between government forces and armed groups continue to destabilize the region. In Madagascar, the dissolution of the government by Colonel Michael Randrianirina has triggered mixed reactions across the country. Some young protesters and political activists see the move as an opportunity to reform and a possible reset in the political transition. Others, however, remain cautious, fearing prolonged uncertainty and instability. Political parties and civil society groups are now waiting for announcements regarding the formation of a new administration and the roadmap of the transition, which will be crucial for restoring confidence in the country's political process.